My best friend's son. I never imagined a cup of tea could change the trajectory of my life. Yet here I was, staring into the steam of a half-drunk mug, heart pounding like a drum, as if the very essence of my world had just shifted. His name was Elijah. To most, he was just another boy in his 20s, tall, athletic, quiet with those deep, unreadable eyes that reminded you of midnight. But to me, he was more than that. He was Michelle's son. My best friend's only child. Michelle and I had been inseparable since secondary school, two girls with big dreams and even bigger hearts. We went through university together, heartbreaks, weddings, childbirth. When my own marriage crumbled under the weight of infidelity, Michelle was the one who held me at 3 a.m., whispering, "You'll find peace again." Her son grew up around me. I remember his first bike, his graduation from secondary school, and even how he cried when his father left. I watched him become a man, but never in a way that stirred anything deeper. Until last summer. It started innocently. Michelle had gone on a spiritual retreat in Ghana for 3 weeks and asked if Elijah could stay at my place while he waited for his youth placement to begin. "He's no trouble, really," she'd said, smiling. "And Lord knows your house has more space than mine." I didn't object. Why would I? Elijah was practically family. But what I didn't know was how different he had become. He walked into my house carrying a duffel bag and a quiet confidence that I didn't remember from before. His voice was deeper now. His stare lingered a second longer. And his words, they were no longer boyish. "Thanks for having me, Auntie T," he'd said on that first day, his voice warm. "You've always been like a second mom." I smiled, brushing it off with a laugh. But something inside me shifted. We fell into routine quickly. I worked remotely, and Elijah spent most of his time writing music in the guest room. He'd come into the kitchen shirtless sometimes, casually humming as he cooked breakfast. He wasn't trying to seduce me, at least, not then, but I found myself watching the way his back flexed when he reached for the pepper. I told myself it was just admiration. Nothing more. I was 41. Divorced. A mother. He was 24. A child I helped raise. But then came the night of the thunderstorm. The lights had gone out, and we sat in the dim glow of candlelight, eating leftover spaghetti and drinking red wine I kept for guests. We talked about music, life, and how hard it was to find people who truly see you. "I feel like you get me more than anyone else," Elijah said suddenly, his voice low. "Even more than my mom." That sentence cracked something open. I don't remember how our hands touched. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe loneliness. But I do remember how his thumb brushed against mine like a secret waiting to be told. I pulled away. "This is not right," I said, standing abruptly. "You should sleep." But I didn't sleep that night. The following days became awkward, loaded silences, stolen glances. I avoided being alone in a room with him. I told myself it would pass. But temptation doesn't leave quietly. One morning, I found a letter slipped under my door. It was handwritten, messy, raw. I don't know when it happened. I just know it did. "You're not just my mom's friend to me anymore. And I know this is wrong. But I also know it's real. If you say nothing, I never mention this again. But if you feel the same way, even a little, meet me by the garden at midnight." I held the letter for hours, debating between guilt and desire. I thought of Michelle. Of what this would do to her. But I also thought of myself, for once, as a woman, not just a mother, not just someone's ex-wife. Midnight came. I went to the garden. He was there. We didn't speak. He didn't kiss me. He just pulled me into a hug that lingered too long, like we were trying to freeze time itself. And somehow, that moment was more intimate than any kiss could have been. But reality returned the next morning, loud and unforgiving. Michelle called. I'm back. Elijah said he'd just head straight home. Thanks again, babe. I owe you one. I sat frozen. He hadn't told her. And neither did I. That was 2 months ago. Elijah and I never spoke of that night again. We both knew we couldn't go further. I chose to preserve the bond one had with Michelle, the sisterhood that had sustained me when the world turned cold. But some nights, I still remember the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. And though we never crossed that final line, I carry the burden of almost. Sometimes, the hardest decisions aren't between right and wrong, but between love and loyalty.